Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to our next iteration of our Work From Home series. Today, we're going to talk about Google for Nonprofits and all the components of it. We're really excited to get started, but we'll give folks a few minutes to hop on just so everybody's here when we start. So we'll give everybody a few minutes and we'll start soon. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining in on today's webinar. We're really excited to talk to you about Google for Nonprofits, and let's get started. All right. Let me get to my other screen here. Amazing. So let's go over just an overview of Google for Nonprofits. I know a lot of you on this call have been signed up for Google for Nonprofits. I know we have some census counts organizations. We have some organizations from Grover's meeting today. So excited to have everybody here. But if you're not sure that you're signed up, we'll kind of walk through the process of how to do so, how to get you on ad grants, and all of the things that Google for Nonprofits really has to offer. So really, we know that as nonprofits, your work is truly your passion. And, whether that's registering people to vote or, getting the count out there. It's really important that your message gets across to your constituents, your audience, whomever you're trying to reach, whether that's, in the DC area or, elsewhere in the country. So it's really important that, we're getting those messages out there, especially in an election year and in 2020. So in 2011, we actually launched Google for Nonprofits. Larry and Sergey in 2004 actually said, we aspire to make Google an institution that makes the world a better place. And truly, how does the world become a better place than nothing else than nonprofits? So Google for Nonprofits started in 2011 to really serve as a centralized hub for all our nonprofit product offerings to 501c3 organizations out there in the US. So we've launched in 50 countries all over the world, and really we're here to empower nonprofits through our technology. And we want to make sure that you're able to really connect with your audience through that technology. So I want to tell you a little bit about all the things that we can make your organization better with Google for Nonprofits. So first, I want to talk a little bit about G Suite. Of course, many of you probably logged on today using your Gmail account, but through Google for Nonprofits, you can actually get the G Suite Basic equivalent at no cost to you, which is a great resource for nonprofits. Usually it would be $6 a month per user, but with Google for Nonprofits, you can actually get the service for free. So that helps communication within your organization, and I'll go a little bit more in depth into that a little later. Then, of course, we have ad grants. Ad grants, as some of you may know, it's $10,000 in Google ad credits every single month for your nonprofit. It really helps you support your marketing efforts as well as fundraising efforts. And Javi will go into that a little bit later as well. Next, I want to focus on the YouTube for Nonprofits program as well. YouTube, of course, is a huge storytelling medium that you can really get messages out there in short and long form. And, we have billions of people coming to YouTube every single month to get that content. So really capitalizing on YouTube for Nonprofits can help you not only accentuate your channel, but it also can help you connect with constituents. And of course, last but not least, Google Earth and Google Maps, making sure that you have your businesses claimed and things like that. We won't touch on that too much today, but I did want to call that out as well. Okay, so I want to give you guys some background on some of the Google for Nonprofits groups that we've seen have a lot of impact in utilizing these resources. So how do we actually help these organizations achieve impact? So this right here is a photo of Team Rubicon. It's a nonprofit in the US and in the UK. And they leverage skills honed by veterans in the years of service and help put them in communities that have suffered from natural disasters. So really helping the veteran community, when they do leave service and kind of go into different places in the community to provide help. So that's something that I wanted to point out here. Next, really thinking about how Google for Nonprofits is helping employees, volunteers, and supporters truly collaborate. So bringing those stories together, here's a quote from UNICEF. What a better way to tell a global story than by helping children, by connecting offices around the world in different regions, by bringing stories together around a particular topic. And I think that's true with all the nonprofits that we can think of in the civic space. What's more helpful than bringing people's stories and people's similar experiences together to achieve a common goal? Also, Google for Nonprofits really helps you get the word out about your cause. So this is a video that I like to share from the Special Olympics. Hopefully you guys can hear the audio.
Awareness of least acceptance and inclusion means getting in front of as many eyeballs as possible with these great stories. Google was able to help us both figure out who it is we're talking to, but also get a global audience to be able to get those messages out.
Starting out, we knew that we needed about 30,000 volunteers and about 500,000 spectators to come to the games. For us to keep moving quickly and efficiently, technology is really critical.
So there were a couple great bullet points about our decision to go with Google Apps. First off, it was free to nonprofits. We also could add as many users as we wanted. That was crucial for us because, again, being a games organizing community, we didn't know how large we were going to get. So we had to have something that we knew would grow with us. And that's the great thing about Google Apps. It's scalable. You can start with 20 people and end up with 20,000.
Through Google Hangouts, I was able to do mentor training as well as do a couple of segments on the self-read abilities and then post it on YouTube and all that. So it was a really good tool for me to have.
Along with Hangouts, you have tools like Google Docs, like spreadsheets. One of the great things I love about spreadsheets that I can work on those documents at the same time as my coworker is. And there were a lot of documents created for the games, I can assure you. And that document is up to date the minute you leave it.
The number of moving parts, the number of employees, the number of things we got to keep track of is remarkable. One of the things that we used for that was our event tracker with Google Sheets, that we would keep track of all the events that were coming. And so our senior staff could meet and be on the same page.
Our transportation department,
So you guys kind of get the picture there. Of course, we all know the Special Olympics and know how important it is in our communities, but really hearing how they've been able to utilize Google for Nonprofits, utilize all the different components of it to really make their organization shine and, really get the word out. Organizing 20,000 volunteers, not easy. So, we're hopeful that you can take some of these tools and really help your organization as well. So kind of thinking about getting that word out, really Google provides new ways of increasing exposure and getting the word out to volunteers. Of course, we all have our great causes around civic work, but really that work starts with volunteers. So using Google for Nonprofits to get that word out with your volunteers is increasingly important. So here's just a handful of groups that we've helped, not worldwide, more than 10,000 nonprofits across the globe have really used this program and thrived because of it. And, there's everything from small, tiny little budgets to large endowments, from local organizations to, nationwide and even worldwide organizations. And all of them are doing important work, including all of you. So how do you actually get started? So first, you want to make sure to review all the eligibility requirements. One of the things that I want to mention first and foremost, you do have to be a 501c3 to be included in Google for Nonprofits. Of course, there's some other eligibility requirements as well, but that's kind of the primary one that I want to point out to you. And then, of course, signing up. So you can sign up on google.com/nonprofits. It'll bring you to a page that looks just like this on number 2. And then, of course, waiting for your verification. I know a lot of the folks on the call today have already kind of gone through this verification, but it does take a couple of business days to process and get through, just to ensure that you indeed are a nonprofit, because that's important to the structure of the program. And then last but not least, of course, enroll in all of the different product areas through Google for Nonprofits. So G Suite, YouTube, Google Ad, grants, those do require some extra steps just because they do fall on different platforms. All right, so we kind of went through some of the eligibility requirements, but I just want to point out some of the groups that are not eligible. So government entities and organization, hospitals and healthcare organizations, and of course, school institutions like universities, things like that. We do, work with all these different groups, but not through the Google for Nonprofits lens. All right, so kind of that verification waiting, usually it's 2 to 14 business days. With all the things happening around COVID, it has taken a little bit longer for groups. So make sure to be on the lookout for some of those emails from TechSoup, who is the verification partner, and they really check on all the verification components. So take a look out for that. Of course, if you have any trouble going through the verification process, feel free to reach out as well. And then, of course, enrolling in our different product areas. Today, we'll talk about G Suite and ad grants and a little bit about YouTube to kind of get started and enroll on those. But make sure that if you do have something that you're looking to get involved with, you do go to the nonprofits page, and it'll show you a list just like this one right here, and it shows you how to enroll in each one of those products. And of course, learning more about the products, there are product-specific resources, help centers, more community stories than just the ones that I shared today. And then, of course, YouTube channels, looking at YouTube resources, and also, I didn't mention it here, but the Creator Academy as well. So let's start with G Suite for nonprofits. I love using G Suite. It's a way that I can connect with my colleagues and also organizations just like yours. So I am a huge advocate for using G Suite, especially G Suite for nonprofits, because it's free to you. So really thinking about G Suite and how and where work is done, it's really done in a social manner. Now, through our work here in COVID, it's kind of shaken up the world that we know and live in based on our working styles. So really thinking about how you're talking to folks, it's really being able to connect with people and being able to get that story or that communication across to your colleagues. And when you're doing that, you can accomplish your goals and you can really come up with some great ideas. So thinking about how to use that and how to leverage that is really important with the technological function, especially when we're not all in the same place anymore. So when we think about G Suite, it's not just using Gmail or Sheets or Docs. So here's kind of a breakout of what G Suite has to offer. So thinking about creating pieces of work. Of course, we all know Google Docs, but there's Sheets, forms, slides. Even right now, I'm using a Google slide presentation. So, you can see it in action right here. You can see Jamboard sessions, all the things that really can bring your projects to life. Then on the upper right-hand side, you kind of see the ways that you can connect. So, of course, that's Gmail, Google Meet, and also Google Chat feature. One of the big ones that I love to think of is the calendar. Sending calendar invites can keep you organized. And also with G Suite, it'll include a link to a Google Meet in your calendar invites if you wish. So instead of having to fumble and find somebody to get the conference call link, you can just put it right in your calendar, which is very handy, especially when you're on the go. And you can also use it on your phone as well. And then thinking about access, of course, thinking about Drive and Cloud, really where are all of your files being stored, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, control, making sure that your accounts are secure and that you really know who has access to all that data. So, of course, you could find all of these features in G Suite, and really it does help nonprofits kind of get their messaging across, and also helps you function better as an organization. So how do we actually sign up? Here we go. So the link right here is how you can enroll. Enrolling in G Suite for nonprofits is fairly simple. Of course, you have to go through the verification first on Google for Nonprofits just to ensure that you are indeed eligible for G Suite for nonprofits. So make sure that you go through that step first, but then go through the steps outlined here, and then you can enroll in G Suite for nonprofits. So super helpful. Here's the enroll link here, but I also want to point out some more resources as well. So kind of what's new, everything is changing within G Suite right now. There's a whole host of things that are being added every single day from our G Suite and Meet teams. So be sure to check those out on our blog. Also a plug for our social media, at Google Politics is our handle, and of course, civics-outreach@google.com. So feel free to reach out if you want to know more about some upcoming features. We also do have some more trainings below right here on demand that you can learn more about some of those G Suite features that have come out as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Javi now, and he's going to talk more about ad grants. Oh, I think I have to unmute him.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks so much, Maria. There's a lot to cover, so we can get right into it. As you mentioned, ad grants are a great resource that nonprofits can be using to connect with their target audience. So let's go into what those actually are. Great. So, excuse me. So essentially, ad grants offer a helping hand to nonprofits. As part of our mission, we want to help grow charitable giving and help nonprofits succeed at connecting people to their causes. So Google offers $10,000 per month to Google for Nonprofits users in free advertising that can help them reach their people and establish meaningful connections. So in 2007 alone, we recorded 1.8 billion website visits to 51,000 nonprofit sites globally. So this is really helping get that additional exposure to these folks and the great work that they're doing. Moving through to the next slide. To give some context about just how much Google is committed to this initiative, the ad grants program is over 17 years old now, and we've awarded over 115,000 grants and given $2 billion in free advertising to organizations in 51 countries. So this is, if you haven't already taken advantage of it, this is something that folks have been doing for a while, and we've seen some great success in. So you should take advantage of it also. And then going over to the next slide, what exactly can you do with these ad grants? So they're funds you could use to run ads with links to your organization that'll show up in relevant Google searches. And then why do we offer these grants? Ad grants give resource-strapped nonprofits free advertising so that they can help get valuable information out to their audiences, which is it's directly aligned to Google's mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible to everyone. So this is one way, just one way that your nonprofit can be using Google to increase the exposure to the great work that you're doing. Going forward to the next slide. So how can you get results using these grants, right? We want, in addition to the exposure, we hope that ad grants can help you be more effective in reaching your goals. That could be anything from driving up viewership on informational videos that you've produced, to increasing subscriptions to your newsletters, registrations to events that you're hosting, driving signatures to petitions, or even increasing membership and donations to your organization. So this is a helpful way for you to think about how you can use these resources to direct objectives that you have as an organization. Then moving on to the next one. So now, why are online ads so effective, and why should you be using them to help get people to take actions in support of your organization? There are a few ways that they're really helpful. First, it helps nonprofits reach larger audiences. Google.com processes over 3 billion searches per day. So those are people that you could be reaching with your advertising. Second, it delivers highly targeted messaging. Your ads will serve to people who are searching relevant search terms in queries. So you know that your ads are being seen by people who have expressed at least some interest in your cause or topics that are relevant to your organization. And then third, it's incredibly measurable against a range of goals for your nonprofits, and I'll talk about how you can track those measures and make sure that you're hitting your benchmarks in later slides. And then lastly, it's very responsive. Nonprofits work in like topics that are relevant to news, such as like a crisis, a policy debate, even celebrity endorsements. So when online ads can give you the flexibility to change either your targeting, your search terms within minutes if you're ready, allowing you to very quickly capitalize on advertising opportunities or opportunities to be part of that conversation around relevant topics. And then moving on to the next one, I just wanted to kind of walk through some examples of how You can use Google ads to achieve those goals. Here are just a couple of examples. I won't read through each of them, but you can see them on your screen. But just a couple of them. Are you looking for donors? That's something we can help with. Are you just trying to raise awareness for your organization, your cause? We're able to help with that as well. Do you need volunteers, or you want to drive up signups for a form, your newsletter, websites, whatever it might be? We can also help with that. These are just some examples of how organizations have been successful in this space, but this is something that anyone with a Google for Nonprofit account and these ad grants can also achieve with some of the information that we're going to be providing. So going on to the next slide, how do your ads actually appear when you run this advertising, right? At the very top of the page, you'll see the advertising here. It's going to be followed by what's called organic links to and relevant websites below. So the beauty of these ads is that because they're triggered by terms that someone is searching for, they're always or typically going to be very, very relevant to users that are going to Google to search anything that they're curious about. So because you're going to get that prime visibility and there's going to be highly targeted ads, you're going to make sure that you're reaching your target audience when they're looking for that information most. And then going on to the next slide, we'll just talk about how you actually get started. So let's get into it. So the first step that you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to sign up for Google for Nonprofits at google.com/nonprofits if you haven't already. Once you've been approved through that process, you can then enroll for ad grants. Then you're gonna need to create an ad grants account, which you can do by following our creation guide. And then lastly, you can submit your ad grants account number for review. And once it's been approved, you should be ready to go. So on the next slide, you can actually see exactly where you would start that process. You can see right under where you see all the different offerings that are available to you through Google for Nonprofits. You can just click on that enroll button and then get started with the process that I outlined in the previous slide. Then going on to the next slide. I talked about goals in an earlier slide and how you could be thinking about capitalizing on these ad grants to achieve those goals for your organization. So each web page should have a very clear goal, and here are some very common ways that people use these ads and then track those goals through Google. I won't get into these for the sake of time, but I really encourage you to look through each of these and start thinking about like what your organization's goal is and how you could be using these resources to create actionable calls to action for folks that are going to be visiting your website. And these are just a couple of the examples. And again, we'll open it up for questions at the end if you have something more specific that you'd like to learn about. And then going into the next slide. I think we skipped one. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, great. So how is this actually structured, and how does it how does this structure impact you? So a couple of things to keep in mind. First, with the format, the only ad type that's supported through these ad grant program is text-based ads, right? No display ads or YouTube ads. Those are only available to paid accounts and not through this Google for Nonprofit program. And then on placements, ads will only show on google.com searches. So again, no YouTube or display ads. And then on the bidding, the maximum that you'll be able to spend on per click on these ads is $2 unless you're using conversion-based bidding strategies. And then lastly, we already mentioned this a couple of times, but $10,000 of in-kind Google ads each month are available to you through this program. Great. And now getting into what the structure of Google ads is. So as you can see here, at the very top, you have your Google ad account, which will be your nonprofits account, followed by the campaign itself, which is where you're going to be controlling the budget, the bidding, setting your bidding rates, as well as some of your location targeting and all that. followed by ad groups, which is where you're going to be adding in the keywords and search terms that you want your ad for, where you want your ads to surface when folks are looking for key terms on Google search. That's really where you're gonna be able to get creative and start segmenting your ad groups to make sure that if you have different, your organization has different offerings, different programs, or different things that you're trying to highlight, that you can create different ad groups that are going to speak to those specific offerings and are only going to surface to folks that are looking for that information, so that it's most relevant to your target audience. And we can get into that in more detail in a later slide, so we can go on to the next one. Great. So I mentioned keywords a bunch of times. So what are they? Keywords are just the search queries that are going to trigger your ads. So that's when you get on google.com and you enter in, whatever it is that you happen to be curious about. Those terms that you enter into the search bar are going to be what are going to trigger those ads. So you'll need to make sure that the keywords that you're inputting in those ad groups are going to be the ones that are most relevant to the information that you're providing, so that you are connecting with the right audience members. And then getting into the next. So now I'd like to walk you through an example of what a just okay ad campaign might look like, what a better one looks like, and then what a great one looks like. And if you're hearing some drilling, I apologize. It's my building's apparently doing some construction. So the first example I want to walk through is an ad group that has a campaign that has just one ad group with a lot of different search terms. So this is an example of someone who's offering computer classes, right? In this first example, they have computer classes for both kids and adults, but they're lumping all of them in together, right? So that means that whether the information on the ad that you're surfacing is specific to the program for kids or the program for adults, it's going to just show to everyone. So that means that let's say there's someone else who's offering more targeted advertising. Let's say they're just offering classes for adults and they're being very, very specific about the search terms that they're using, about the language that they're using in their ad. It's much more likely that those ads are going to catch the user's attention over the ad that you have created that is more generic and just captures a whole lot of different search terms. So then getting into the second example, you see two ad groups which have separated the kids classes from the adults classes and the relevant search terms to match. This is better than the first scenario, but we can even get more specific than that. So in the final example here for great, you actually see that they've broken it down into 3 different ad groups: one for kids coding classes, one for adult typing classes, and then one for senior computing skills classes, right? So you see that they're very specific to what those classes actually offer, as well as to the target audience that they're trying to reach. And if you wanted to, for example, you can even segment this out even further, breaking down into, like let's say for kids, you want to separate it between teens and other and younger kids for those classes. So again, you have a lot of flexibility when you're thinking about creating those ad groups and the relevant search terms that you want to drop into them as well. So going into the next slide. So the keywords that you're going to be using, this can help make your ad more relevant to users when they're searching what you offer. Google Ads will try to replace we'll try to replace your own words and keywords in the ad group with things that are going to be relevant to those searches. So as you drop in those searches, it'll still try to find relevant matches. So let's talk a little bit about like how you create those like effective ads, because space is limited and there's a lot that we can go deeper on here. One of the biggest mistakes that we see people doing is putting the brand name in the headline of an ad. Unless it's extremely strong, you want to focus the main part of your ad on responding to what people's search intents are. So instead of trying to communicate everything about your organization in an ad, you want to make sure that when you're running that ad, that it's relevant to the call to action that you are asking from users. So if you're running an ad intended to increase signups to your newsletters, you want to spend more time and more real estate on that ad, convincing people as to why they should sign up for your newsletter, and not necessarily going through all of the details of your organization. So thinking through like how you're actually formatting and creating those ads itself. And again, you can find more information about this on our help center as well. So getting into the next one. So one thing that's really, really important when you're thinking about advertising is thinking about where users are going to end up, right? So most of the time that's going to be your website. So you want to make sure that you have a really high quality website. And if you haven't given that much thought, this is a great opportunity for you to consider what users' experience is when they land on your website. So what do you want someone to do when they visit the website? Is there a clear call to action, or is it easy for them to understand how to get to the endpoint of that ad? So usually the way that it's going to happen is someone's going to see, they're going to search for something, they're going to see your ad, and they're going to arrive on your website. So you want to make sure that you're taking the time to create the best quality experience. So when folks go to your website, they see that clear call to action, and they can get to that last point, and helps you reach your objectives. Great. And then next point, now talking about Google Analytics. This is obviously we've covered a lot here, and there's a lot of information that you can generate from running these advertisements. So the best way that you can make sure that your campaigns are being successful and that you're hitting all of your target objectives is to look at the analytics. So the great thing about running this is that you can sync it seamlessly with Google Analytics. So you can track a whole lot of information, like how many people have seen your ad, how many of them have clicked on the ads, but also just more broad information on what people are reading on your website. Are they looking at the videos? So these are just a couple of the examples of all the different analytics that you can be looking at. But this is the best way for you to really create effective ad campaigns. And then analytics also extends to your website if you've linked it to analytics as well. So you can be getting great information about where folks are spending time on your website, where the drop off in folks is when they read through a page on your website, all that kind of stuff. So Google Analytics is a really powerful tool, and I encourage you to use it if you aren't already. And then going on to a really helpful tool that you all should be using. It's testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. This is going to test your site performance and help you get a better understanding of how well your site is working. So you want to make sure, again, that to create the best possible experience for users, so that if you see that your website is really not performing all that great, taking that time to consider what you could be doing to improve the performance and speed of that experience for users. And then lastly, I just want to leave you all with some resources, and feel free to write all these down, take a screenshot, whatever. So just www.google.com/grants to learn about the ad grants that we talked about. You can go to our community page also just to learn a lot more about questions that folks have and answers that have been provided within the community in case you have any doubts or issues. You can also call our Google Ads customer service line to get support on any issues that you're having with ad disapproval or any other issues. And then I talked about the Help Center. The Help Center offers information about pretty much everything Google, but there's also specific articles that are relevant to ad grants as well as advertising. So please feel free to visit there if you want to learn more, as well as your YouTube channel, Help Center articles there as well. And yeah, pretty much this is all the resources that I think would be really useful. And then I will pass it off to my colleague, Erica.
So I just have been alerted that I was talking and I've been muted for the last maybe like 5 minutes. I'm really sorry, everybody. Well, everybody could definitely see the challenges and opportunities for YouTube for nonprofits. Of course, you've seen them on the slide for the last 5 minutes, but kind of going through those challenges and opportunities, YouTube can really help you and get your message across. So I won't go through it again because you guys definitely can read, but sorry I was muted for all that time. But I want to give you some resources that you're left here with. So Google for nonprofits in general, just google.com/nonprofits, and then set up, support, all of those kind of things. Also on other channels as well, Twitter and Facebook, and then G Suite, ad grants, and YouTube, all different resources right there for you. And we have those throughout the presentation as well. So with that, does anybody have any questions? I know if you do have a question, I see a lot of people that are saying that I was muted. So good to know that you all are paying attention. But thanks so much for your patience with that. I'm really sorry. But if you do have any other questions, we're happy to answer those there. But thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I think sometimes when things go wrong, then you figure out that people are there and listening. So thanks so much for kind of flagging that for us. So are there any questions that anybody has? I do see Nina. Can we watch this later and share with others? And will there be a recording? The answer is yes and yes. So you can watch the on-demand recording right here on the Events on Air platform. And you can not only watch this presentation, but the presentation of all the previous trainings that we've done. I think this might be our 15th one so far. So you can watch any of the trainings that we've done on demand. Also, they're on our YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/Google Civics. You can watch them there too. So here or on the YouTube channel as well. And if you would like a copy of the slides, feel free to email the alias on the screen right here, civics-outreach@google.com. That's where you'll get me, Javi, and the rest of our team, and we're happy to send the slides as well. Awesome. So I see another question from Daniel. For organizations that already use Gmail and G Suite, how will signing up for Google for Nonprofits integrate with current organization Gmails, Drives, etc.? So in signing up for Google for Nonprofits, you won't erase any of the things that you have. Essentially, it's just taking away the payment structure. So you do have to facilitate that through Google for Nonprofits to ensure that they do transfer everything over correctly. But we want to make sure that you're not losing anything, just that you're getting the support that you need from us. So great question, Daniel. I know a lot of groups out there already use G Suite, which is amazing. And we want to make sure that you can continue to do that. And, we want to make sure that the financial burden isn't a hassle. Okay, cool. Anybody else have any more questions? I know one question that I get a lot from folks when they're setting up their Google for Nonprofits account is, do I need a separate account if I run other types of ads? And the answer to that is yes. So if you do run any paid advertising, whether that's display or your YouTube channel, or you just want different bidding on Google search, make sure that you have a separate ad account, because your Google for Nonprofits account shouldn't have you require a payment method. So make sure that you do not put in a payment method when you set up this account, because what will happen is it'll start billing that payment method, and then you'll have to go through a crazy reimbursement process, and we don't want that. So when you are setting up the account, make sure you have separate accounts if you do want to run video or display ads. And if you already have an account that's set up, make sure you just set up a new separate one just for the ad grants, because that payment structure can get a little bit tedious if you do set it up. So make sure you don't put any payment information in the Google for Nonprofits account when you set it up. Awesome. I see a question from Nina here. You mentioned universities are not included in this program. Is it only U.S. universities or foreign universities that have a 501c C3 equivalency determination qualify. So that's any universities across the board. We definitely do a lot of work with universities, just not through the Google for Nonprofits program. Awesome. Are there any more questions out there? Feel free to, type them in the box below. I'll give folks a few more minutes. But also, if you have any questions that you just think of after this, make sure you reach out to civics-outreach@google.com. We're totally happy to answer any questions, not only about the presentation that you saw today, but about any of our tools or products, especially as we're all working from home right now. We know that a lot of things come up, so feel free to do that. Okay, I see some questions here in the chat as well. If you're a 501c3 and not a hospital or a school, what limitations are there on the kind of text ads that you can run, if any? So the limitations on your ads have to do with just the parameters of what you can run as a 501c3. So of course, in our space, that's very prevalent, thinking about messages that you can only do as educational pieces versus like electioneering or something like that fall under C4s and C6s, things like that. So you'll want to check in with your legal department on some of those things. But basically it's falling under the parameters of what you can say as a C3. And there are some more resources on the things that you can put out there, but mostly the parameters are in the context of what you can say in public as a C3. So thanks, Ralph, for that that question. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Next week, we're going to be hosting another webinar, same time, same channel, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be on talking about ways that you can set up your production tools from home for YouTube. So if you're trying to figure out what lighting situation's the best, or what camera to buy, or what equipment you might need to film your principal or your organization from home, make sure to tune in next Wednesday, 2 p.m. right here on Events on Air or on our YouTube channel. And we're going to go through that with our YouTube folks. So we're really excited about that presentation. But if I see no more questions, we'll wrap it up for today. Like I said, email civics-outreach@google.com, and we are happy to take any more questions there. Javi, do you have anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
Nope, I think you pretty much covered all of it. Again, if you have, as Maria mentioned, if you have questions, just feel free to email our alias. And I see that we've already got some incoming. So yeah, we'll do our best to get you the information that can help you get going.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And we'll see you next week for our presentation on YouTube production tools. So see you then. Thanks so much.